Meantime, we want to continue our conversation about America's crime crisis and the wide-ranging legal ramifications with former FBI special agent and Fox News contributor Nicole Parker, Washington Times legal affairs reporter, attorney Alex Hoyer, and a candidate for Superior Judge in Fulton County, Georgia, civil rights attorney and friend of the program, Robert Patillo. I want to begin with you, Nicole. Listen, I think I can speak frankly. I've shared with you privately. I've been carjacked here in the nation's capital. I've been a victim of property crime. When you look at the numbers, it doesn't make sense, especially when you consider where this city was just a year ago. What gives?
Soft on crime policies do not work, and we're seeing that in Washington, D.C. and nationwide. And it is extremely important that Americans wake up to this and that you elect officials that believe in backing the blue, enforcing laws, putting judges in place who will hold criminals accountable, and letting individuals know that will not be tolerated. When there is no consequence for your behavior, you can expect the crime rates to continue and to continue to soar, and it's very, very dangerous for our cities. Dangerous indeed. Alex, let me get you to weigh in on this, because I think when you look at this from a legal perspective, you have to make the argument that we can do more, clearly, but what's the right tack here if you're in leadership in Washington? What say you?
Well, one thing that could be done is more prosecutions, and that was something that came out in recent reporting. I had noticed, I think it was fiscal year 2022, the U.S. Attorney's Office that's in charge with bringing prosecutions, federal prosecutions here in D.C., they only really brought a third of the crimes that the cases they were presented, which is problematic. There should be an increase in that number. And then, of course, we also need to see more officers on the street. D.C., of course, defunded the police back in that wave in 2020, and now we're at a 50-year low in terms of the number of officers on the force in the city.
Robert, I want to talk about the numbers, and they have been astronomical when compared to 2022. When you just sort of step back and you talk about the explosion of carjackings, even arson in this city, I think the buck stops at the top, but for some reason, Muriel Bowser seems to get a pass when it comes to this problem, or so it would seem standing from the outside looking in. Am I wrong on that?
Well, you have to realize this is a national problem, not just Washington, D.C., but almost every major urban area, Atlanta, New York, Chicago, is dealing with this. Part of it is we have a COVID backlog in this country of cases. There are people who have been sitting in jail for 5, 6, 7 years awaiting trial, and as those cases linger and clog up the court system, we can't bring new cases in, move them, prosecute them, and get these people off the streets. We have to put judges in place nationwide that are able to move these cases through the court system. No individual should commit a crime in 2020 and still be waiting on going to trial in 2024 or 2025. You get those cases moving, you prosecute more people, you get the bad people off the street, you bring the crime rate down, not just in D.C., but nationwide.
Let me ask you all about 15 seconds apiece, beginning with you, Nicole. The problem with youth crime is particularly acute here in the nation's capital. It's almost as if these rings know that if I send a 14-year-old out there with a weapon, nothing will happen. He or she will get a slap on the wrist. How do you address that issue?
The way you address it is that if that occurs, then they don't get a slap on the wrist and they are held accountable. There are certain districts and areas where individuals, if they're committing felonies in certain areas as a minor, they could potentially be charged as an adult. And again, when there is no consequence, the crime is going to continue. There must be accountability. You make choices and you have to be accountable for your choices. There has to be a consequence in order for this cycle to end. There is such a rise in juvenile crimes, and if there's no accountability, it will continue. It has to end.
Alex, when you talk about that rise, that's the part that really gets people in town. You want to stay here. You don't want to end up in an urban doom loop where high crime drives families to the suburbs, and eventually that means your taxes go up and more families leave, and it sort of spirals out of control. To you, same question about what do we do when a lot of the alleged offenders, are under 18?
Yeah, there has to be some changes. I think we talk a lot about the law and what the law could do. One aspect is some of these places that have the zero bail policies. We see they're back out on the streets, and a 70% increase in somebody who's a suspect released on a zero bail policy reoffends at 70%. That's huge. So that's one problem. The other, I think, that if we take it out of the legal sense, is parenting. There's questions about if parents should be held accountable. I think you were mentioning carjackings. I think it was a recent press conference from one of the officers I saw in D.C. say that they had actually arrested a child that was 9 for carjacking.
Wow, incredible. Robert, 15 seconds.
Well, I think we have to take biblical principles and apply them to the law. 2 Timothy says the law is good so long as we use it lawfully. We have to look at restorative justice programs to not just arrest these individuals and punish them, but while they're in custody, teach them the life skills and the trade skills they need to become actually productive members of society. If you're in jail for 5 years, you should know HVAC or long-haul trucking when you get out.
Well done, my friend. Robert, Alex, and Nicole, thank you all. We could talk about this all night. You guys have a great weekend. We appreciate it.
Thanks, Kevin.
Thank you.
Thank you.